Thank you so much for joining us here at Integral for a 30-minute quick discussion about navigating the CommTech ecosystem. CommTech, which is communications technology, is more necessary than ever in this hybrid age, which is, I know, a phrase we're all getting tired of hearing, but it's true and it's here to stay. So with this digital age, there's a huge need for tools that allow teams to work remotely. And like any disruptor, there's thousands of tools out there, and it's overwhelming to find what the right tool for your team is. So that's why we've gathered these experts here today. We're going to be talking about finding the right tools for your business. Before I introduce you to those experts, I do want to let you know that we're recording this just so that we can share the replay with all of you after. So if you have to hop off early, don't worry, we've got you covered. We're also going to be capturing all of your questions in the chat, and we're going to be answering them at the end. If we run out of time, we're going to be answering those questions in a recap log that we're also going to be sending to everyone who registered. Awesome. So let's meet those experts. I'm Mary Grace. I'm a client manager with Integral, and I'm joined by Scott Ashen, who is Integral's digital workplace subject matter expert consultant, and that's quite a mouthful. And we're also joined by Ethan McCarty, who is our founder and CEO. So Scott, why don't you introduce yourself real quick?
Sure. So I have about 14 or so years working in the digital workplace environment. We didn't really call it digital workplace 14 years ago, but that's what it's become. Large variety of clients, both size-wise, Fortune 100, 20-person companies, lots of different industries. And through that, I've learned a lot about what clients are looking for, what the challenges are, and it's a really exciting workplace, and I love being in this space.
Awesome. Ethan?
Thanks, Mary Grace. I'm Ethan McCarty. I'm the CEO and founder of Integral, and have spent 20 plus years kind of working in the space in between employees and employers. And generally those spaces are mediated by digital interfaces these days, or increasingly so. And so this topic of CommTech, which is both, the tools and many other things, as we're going to explore today, has been really central to my my professional career, which started as a journalist. I spent many years at IBM, and I spent 4 years running employee communications at Bloomberg before founding this organization, Integral, which is in its 4th year.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen here so we can all actually look at each other, and let's dive into some of the questions. So I think it makes the most sense to start with, what is CommTech? We've established it's communications technology, but what does it do? Ethan?
So where I want to start is a piece of work that I had the opportunity to contribute to, along with others, through the Page Society. So Page Society, you can look at page.org and get a sense for who they are. They're chief communications officers, CEOs of communications agencies and academics. And we had a working group that came up with a definition and some facets for what is CommTech. And the working definition is that CommTech applies data and analytics to create communications campaigns that engage a range of stakeholders, but as unique individuals based on their behaviors, beliefs, and interests to drive desired actions and outcomes. And you'll notice that technology doesn't actually feature a very large role in that definition. And in fact, when we think about like what CommTech actually does, it's it ends up operating in the space of content, of relationships, of gaining insights, and of managing workflows. And so what I would call the kind of 3 pillars of CommTech is, sure, the tools, right? That's a big one, and we're gonna spend some time talking about tools today. But as just on equal footing are the methods that we use to make the most of those tools and systems, and then the people, the skills that goes into that. So if you want to think about CommTech as a 3-legged stool, it's the tools, it's the methods, and it's the people and their skills.
Awesome. I love thinking about it in those three parts. Scott, what is CommTech to you?
It's basically along the same lines. I also think about it as, you know, I think about it a lot more from the tool side and the service side. How are we thinking about, taking, CommTech, really a lot of it is having the right tool in the right place to accomplish a set of goals. And, unfortunately, a lot of people go right to the tool and they don't think about, the why. But
Right.
when I think about CommTech, I think about it's like a long thread, and along the way are a lot of different components, tools and services are right. Like we have to have the right people in the right place, thinking about how to, you need the carpenter to use the hammer, right? But what are we trying to build?
Awesome. I like where you were going with that. Can you tell us a little more about why people should start thinking about CommTech for their business?
Yeah, I always advise clients, you want to start with that question of why. Strategically, what are we trying to accomplish? I mentioned just a second ago, a lot of times when clients have talked to me about CommTech and well, we're thinking about this email tool, or we're thinking about this set of this analytics suite, or this mobile application. And I'm like, well, let's pause and let's have a serious conversation about why are you doing this? What are your strategic objectives? And sometimes they've got that well thought out and they're ready to go. And then it's just simply help them identify the right vendors and the right tools that will meet that. But more often than not, I've found that pause is really valuable, to stop and think about strategically, what is our communications plan? How are we, what's the miss? What are we missing here? And how could some technology help us?
Mhm.
Do we need to strengthen our engagement capabilities? Do we need, it could simply be we just need to reach a broader audience. We're just not reaching everybody. I recently worked with a client that very much went straight to, we need a new tool, right? And it was a big, expensive project with a lot of team members, and they went straight to, this old tool doesn't work and we need to replace it. Didn't do a lot of requirements analysis along the way. They did some RFP, but and so basically ended up with a product now that's not really where they needed to be.
Mm.
And so now there's a big reset happening, and thinking about, what strategically are we trying to accomplish? Let's redefine our requirements and let's see if we can get this product to work, but maybe we need to reset. And so not doing this in that order can get expensive, not just financially, but a lot of lost time, right? It's a lot of time has passed since this project started. So you have to think about, like, what we're investing time and money here. And so let's be really smart about how we're going to enter into a CommTech project.
I want to build on that just a tiny bit. And I think, it's, I actually just got off a call. I mean, literally 15 minutes before we started this webinar, with a professional communicator, an organization, who got in touch with us because their intranet is not living up to their needs. And that was kind of what instigated the conversation. And it really was an interesting conversation, because at the end of the conversation, we weren't talking about intranets at all. I mean, it was like, actually, they have some tools there that, they can get through January or February, or maybe even a quarter or two. It's not going to blow up. And so I'm a big fan of the go to the beach with the trunks that you're wearing, and then maybe learn some new swim moves. And in that case, I think, you can use the systems that you have at hand and focus on those other components of the pillars. So, like, do you have the skills there? Do you really understand, like, how to make the most of those tools? And then do you have the right processes in place? Is there governance in place for those tools? Is it a problem actually inherent to the technology, or is it some of those other parts of that broader idea of CommTech? You may, after doing that work, come to the conclusion that, yeah, you need a new intranet, and that would be totally fair. But it would accrue to the benefit of what Scott was just saying about understanding the why, like, what's the actual driver here before we go make a big investment.
Right.
One last thought there is, the other thing that results in that analysis and then looking at the strategy is, we went into this thinking we need this, But actually, now that we've done a little bit deeper dive here, maybe, even if you're still going to do a buy and project, and maybe we need this, or we're going to go in a
Yeah,
different
so
direction.
true.
So like, doing the analysis helps you really think about what do we have and do we need this, how much do we need?
Absolutely. And that's exactly why we've thought about bucketing CommTech into different categories that solve for different needs. Ethan, I'd love if you could walk us through our catalog that actually organizes CommTech based on solving needs first.
Yeah, let me show you. So you should know a little bit of background on this piece of work here. So this is freely available to whomever. You can just go to Integral's website, and we'll share the direct link with you, following the webinar, but or even in the chat. I think Mary Gracie said you might drop it in there. But this is our CommTech catalog. What we've done is we took some of those categories I described earlier of systems that deal with content or insight, relationship management, or workflows, and we looked at more than 400 different communication technologies on the market, and put them into a database. And the project started with us like kind of having an internal spreadsheet of all the tools that we came in contact with through our client engagements. And then we were like, oh, this is really valuable, we should share this. And so on first blush, when you just arrive at the page, it actually is giving you a list of all 400 of them if you click through this whole thing. But what you can do is you can just select a category. So for example, if you're interested in kind of a content management or content creation tool, you could click content, and suddenly this list has narrowed down to content oriented. But then you can go to this little additional filters area and say, oh yeah, actually when it comes to content, I'm really thinking about digital signage, and so that's going to get me down to some systems that interoperate with digital signage or intranets. Or what have you. Or if you're thinking, no, actually, I want to be, pardon me, I had workflow suggested. That's why that result set was a little limited. So like intranets, it's going to show you a bunch of different intranets. It's going to or if you want to look at email systems related to content. And then you can even say, look, I'm looking for with CommTech solutions that are oriented around the desktop versus mobile. And so, essentially, it's a very large database. It's kind of a living, breathing thing. And so, if we're missing something, we would very much like for you to click that little link there and make sure that we've not mischaracterized something, or we're missing something entirely. And then, of course, if this starts to spark some ideas for you, you can just click this little guy here and drop us a line, or give us a jingle, as we say. And we'd love to get, we'd love to learn from you. And obviously we have a point of view we'd love to share with you as well. Sometimes it's as simple as we were saying before, go to the beach with the trunks you got, but other times it's a little bit more complex to figure out how to really activate CommTech within your organization, bring your team up to speed, build those skills, build those processes, and so on. And Scott and I would love to be engaged with you, of course.
Yeah. Absolutely. And now that you've shown us where people can find some great CommTech tools, when should they consider investing in CommTech? Scott?
So I would say it's a little bit different for everybody. Mostly it's after you've done that evaluation, right? I mean, you have to think about what strategically am I trying to accomplish, and then start to think about tactics, right? So here's my goals, here's how I need to reach this audience at this cadence, and my audience is splintered, or maybe they're all in one location. In today's work environment, in a hybrid work environment, you've probably got people in the office, at home, on the road, maybe all over the country. So you have to start to think about, like, what is my reach, what is my cadence, and then think about what you have and what's working and what's not. And every organization is different. There is no one answer for everybody.
Right.
I always like to say, like, there's best practices, and then you take those best practices and you bespoke them for the client, because everybody's got a different culture, everybody's different size, different languages, different geographic. So the right time to invest is when what's working now doesn't work.
That's a pretty good barometer. I like when there's something that's like overtly broken. I think it's a really good indicator. And then I think also, if I may jump in there, Scott, I think, you know, there's an expectation, a very rapidly rising expectation to have consumer-like experiences in the workplace.
Mhm.
And this is just, I mean, it's like it's been the case for 15 years that, you know, people have noticed the difference. 15, 20 years, people have like really noticed the difference between enterprise software and consumer software. I mean, you know, since the rise of the web and nice mobile devices, you're like, gosh, this is really easy to use at home. And then you know, the time I spend at work is, you know, 8 to 10 hours a day of like feeling like I'm in a mauve cubicle circa 1987. Like, what is going on here? And so I think,
Where's my
you know,
green
like,
screen?
why is there a text in green screen? So I think there's an opportunity just to, you know, you listen. I mean, we always advocate listening to the employee population as much as you do the broadcasting and the messaging. Do the listening. And, you know, if that's one of those things that comes up perennially, like I can't find stuff, or like Slack doesn't meet my needs, or Yammer's this, or blah blah blah, like when people are actually mentioning the name of products in your employee research or in your employee perceiving activities, that's probably, like, good or bad, it's probably a signal that it's worth inspecting. Let's just say that. And it may not be like literally broken, but that's probably a crack in the dike, right?
Yeah,
you know, it's interesting you mentioned Slack, Ethan, because that's one of the ways they really penetrated the market, is that a lot of tech organizations spun it up on their own and and it just sort of, they got their tentacles into the organization because what was there wasn't working. And so IT folks were like, oh, well, we know about this other product, let's start using it for ourselves, because the things that the company is providing us aren't working. So, you know, you get the shadow tech, and that shadow tech kind of eventually became legit.
100%. Scott, I got to tell you a quick story. And it's when I was working at IBM, there was a certain vendor who shall remain nameless, who was, I ran the company's intranet and the social media team. And, they were always trying to get me on the phone and I was, no. I'm not, I'm not interested. And then, like, I don't know, I didn't hear from them for a while. And I get this note that says, you're already spending over $100,000 annually on our product. Why won't you talk with us? And I was like, that's gotta be a lie. So I took the call, and it turns out that they had figured out that the clip level for having to submit a receipt on your corporate Amex was $75. So they had changed their pricing to $74.99. So all these IBMers had downloaded the software and they were running it, and we were spending over 100 grand annually on the software. And so, they had, when you said shadow IT, that's the kind of thing that happens. Software as a service, and it's very difficult to block. And there's all kinds of security exposures that come up, and exposures around the leakage of intellectual property and confidential information and so on. And so, there's a lot that organizations do at the IT and the firewall level to prevent that kind of thing. Large companies are really good at that. Medium companies, not so much. Small companies, terrible. So you could end up, this is again where I say, listen to what employers are doing, observe what employers are doing, and you may actually have some kind of emergent CommTech in your house already. And that may be a door that's open, worth pushing on, rather than trying to push on some closed door.
It's what the line from Jurassic Park comes to mind of life finds a way. It's like,
that's right.
Tech
Totally.
finds a way, right? It really does. Like,
so,
they'll find a way. If people need to talk and they need to engage and need to collaborate, they'll find a way.
That's right. That's right.
And
100%.
to a large degree, it's like, let's find a way to encourage that and support that, but do it in the right way with the right governance in place.
Absolutely. Now I'm curious to know which tools and which areas of CommTech are exciting you guys and you're reading about and they're emerging and it's gaining your interest. Ethan, what are the areas that you've got your eye on?
I mean, so thanks for the question. I think the first thing that has kind of really surprised me is the reemergence of intranets. I mean, I was always an intranut, as my my mentor Mike Wing used to say. But it's you know, I love the technology. I love the idea of creating a kind of platform inside of an organization, but they're really kind of going the way of the dodo, being replaced by lighter weight interactions. I mean, at the end of the day, early intranets were kind of a simulacrum of like kind of a newspaper that didn't need to be printed. And that was generally the business case that you would, you know, to launch an intranet, you'd be like, well, we can save all this money on print and it's better for the environment, so we'll do an intranet. And so that was kind of going away as mobile, you know, interactions were emerging and so on. I'm really fascinated by the reemergence of intranets because, you know, obviously, you know, because of the pandemic, so many more employees are finding that to be the digital workplace. So, you know, less so intranet like publication, more so digital workplace. But then the other one that I think is really interesting is there's a whole host of apps like Twine and Gather Round and Donut and Disco. And I mean, there's like a zillion of these either plugins or standalone applications that seem to be designed around creating almost engineering serendipity. So that kind of bump into people and exchange ideas and get to know people and build the kind of fabric that becomes networks and cultures. Well, we lost a lot of that. Good or bad, offices, physical offices produced that. And now we have less of that. And so there's technology is finding a way to create some of those. I think it's a really emergent space. You know, and I would say, you know, a little bit the same with some of the, I think there's potential for the metaverse in work environments. I think it's a long way off. So I'm more excited about what's possible, what's old is new again with intranets and digital workplaces, and then also these kind of like engineered serendipity engines, if you will. Yeah. Let me ask Scott.
Trademark.
Scott, what do you think? Rapid fire.
To trademark that phrase first.
So you know, it's interesting because one of the areas that I'm looking at is very tied tightly to the like, I don't know if it's a reemergence, but like, you know, the growth of intranet, and that's artificial intelligence. I really think that AI is you know, it's been around for a long time, and it gets better every year, gets smarter every year. How it supports employees and users gets better. You know, Microsoft just made a huge product launch this year with some AI tools that plug into Microsoft Teams and into SharePoint, and really, you know, that are to promote engagement and things like. But there's lots of specialty vendors out there that only are focused on AI. You know, with the digital workplace becoming this broad landscape, you know, these AI tools are really positioning themselves to bring everything back together again, right? So I'm in Slack and I've got an intranet and I've got these mobile tools and I'm all these different places that I might be, and I might be engaging and I might be learning things. Like there's a knowledge management platform, and the AI space is just ripe for opportunity to really create, you know, you can go out and do this best of breed CommTech solution, and AI brings it all together for you. So I'm really interested to see what direction that's going to go in over the next 5 to 10 years. There's been a lot of investment in it, and I think especially with Microsoft now really like pouncing on it, I think you're going to see a lot of growth in that space.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm personally really excited about well-being tools. We're starting to see that more and more offered as part of benefits packages. There's so many tools emerging in the space there. So I think that's really interesting. And those tools, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you know, we didn't give you credit, which is due. I mean, Mary Grace, you were the one who went through and really looked at, I mean, we've done a lot of research, but you really went through and applied our categorization to those. And it was the wellness space that leaped out. It's like, okay, well, wait, where does this even fit, right?
Right. Yeah. So that's its own category. Please let us know if there's any tools that you in particular use personally or your teams are using, because we'd love to add them to our catalog. And also, please keep those questions coming in. We just got a really great question from Elisa that we'll get to after our last question here. Last question on my end for you all is, now that we've talked about finding the right tools, getting onboarded, perhaps the most important part of all is actually taking insights from these tools and turning them into action. So Ethan, tell us about thinking through the action and the output.
Yeah, I think, well, it's incredibly important to have a very integrated approach. And when I say integrated approach, I'm saying you have internal stakeholders within every organization who are going to have a say in these decisions. And it's going to be HR, it's going to be the communications team, it's going to be marketing, it's going to be security, it's going to be the site operations folks, compliance. And so if you're able to have a group of people who sees the tooling and are part of the process and they're part of its governance and they're really actively engaged in that at the executive level, that's going to make a really big difference, particularly where we talk about translating insights into action. It's amazing how much information gets thrown off of these systems. And I think an emergent skill and role for people who are in communications and HR, all manner of the folks who touch the employee population and that data, is if you can be the interpreter of that, if you can be the expert of like what is actually happening in this organization, how might it impact our ability to serve our customers, to innovate, to make a social impact, if that's part of your remit as an organization, and being able to elevate that. And that needs to then there needs to be a real virtuous circle to bring that back and say, okay, employees, we saw what you're doing, we hear what you're saying. We've elevated that to the executive level. This policy is changing, or we've taken this decision not to do that, and here's why. And so if you can start to do that, the investment in the technology starts to become trivial by comparison to the value that it will throw off for that organization in terms of retaining great people, activating them against the organization's strategy and mission as well.
Awesome. Yeah, so it really is all about thinking about that end goal before you even go looking for the tools. And I think that ties nicely into Elisa's question, which is, when teams are strategizing, what are some hints that a new tool is not the answer?
To me, that is, think about what you're trying to, you have to look at, like, the strategy usually defines the requirements. So we're trying to get this done. We're trying to send out this message or, change this behavior. And my first stop after that is typically, all right, well, let's inventory what we have, right? We have email, we have a mobile solution that is or isn't great, but sometimes it's, but you have to do the evaluation, right? Like, where is it missing? Maybe we need an email tool and not just like throw email out as a solution. Maybe we need a small investment. But so the requirements, I think, help define, does what we have just need to be reworked and we need to rethink our tactics around those tools? Or is it time to invest? And, oftentimes it's some combination of that. It's, okay, let's look at the different communication channels we have. Let's think about how can we use the ones we have better. And maybe there's an opportunity here for a small investment, or no, we need a large investment because our intranet's just not doing it anymore. It doesn't really have that modern feel. It's 10 years old. It's missing a lot of things that, people expect. There's not enough engagement and those kinds of things. So, but the requirements that come out of the strategy, to me, usually help make that decision.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. And thank you, Elisa, for that question. Ethan, I'll bounce it over to you to wrap us up.
All right, Mary Grace, thank you so much. Scott, thank you as ever. And for everybody who's attended today, thank you so much. And if you're watching this sometime in the future, hello, future, the past says hi. Mary Grace, would you mind putting up that little QR code? If you want to follow up with us, we'd love to hear from you. You can always, of course, get to us through our website at teamintegral.com, or just hold your mobile device up to this QR code and it'll take you right over there. Thank you very much. We're here at Integral. We're our sort of passion is creating the future of work for good. And these things that we touch every day, our email systems, our mobile devices, our intranets, all of that stuff, it can either be a real slog, or it can be a moment where it feels frictionless and even delightful and creates meaning and connection to the thing that is often most central to our lives, our work friends, our colleagues, the mission that we dedicate to ourselves to professionally. So we're really, really pleased that we had such a nice showing of attendees, and we wish you very, very well. Thank you.